Well, I heard about Kurdistan the first time when I started my master's in Sweden, actually. There was this guy in my class, and he got there on the first day of our school. And, you just start talking to people, and where are you from is sort of like the most natural question in an international environment. And when he said Kurdistan, I was a little bit stunned because I hadn't actually heard of it before. And when he explained to me that Kurdistan was a part of Iraq, it sort of made more sense to me coming from a European background. But then when I started asking more and more questions about this Kurdistan and why Kurdistan was somehow different from Iraq while being part of Iraq, I got really fascinated with the issue, and I started actually looking into it academically as well because it didn't actually make sense in all the terms of statehood that I had learned about before. Simply because a state, and I'm talking of Iraq here, is supposed to have certain things, and an autonomous region within a state can have certain rights and powers as well, but definitely not as many as the Kurdish region actually de facto has. One of the examples for me was, for example, was that I did not need an Iraqi visa to go to the Kurdish region of Iraq, which to me does not make sense coming from a European background. So what happened is that I was so curious that I just had to take a plane there, and I got on the plane and I got off in Erbil, and I got a Kurdish visa, and I. Until today, I traveled around the Kurdish region a lot, and I never actually had to get an Iraqi stamp or visa or anything, not even in those areas that were outside of the Kurdish region, simply because with the war against the Islamic State at the moment, the borders have moved. And everywhere where the Kurdish Peshmerga are, it's part of the Kurdish region automatically. There is no Iraqi checkpoint. There is nobody to really make you aware that you're in Iraq right now. It's just Kurdistan. It's just there, and on the ground, it's really there. And that was the thing that still fascinates me today, which is why I'm still working on it academically these days. The things I've been most asked about when coming back from Kurdistan and having spent several months there was how it was to live in a war zone and how it was to be there as a woman. So I figured I just share these sort of stories now. And being in a war zone, I only knew war from either history books or Hollywood movies. And what I can say is that it's definitely nothing like that at all. I was actually stunned how normal life was. I mean, apart from actually being at the front lines where it literally looks like war, as soon as you go a little bit further into the country, the towns are just towns and the cities are just cities, and people go to the shopping malls and they go to have tea and they meet with families and they have these parties, and and it's just normal. It's just incredibly normal, and you play pool and you have quiz nights, and it's just everything's there and everything just feels normal. And this was something that was really hard for me also to make others aware of in Europe when they called me and they were really worried about me. And I'm happy that they were, but there was nothing to be really worried about because it was just normal, I guess, to use that word again. And also being there as a woman, the Kurds are very open towards women. The Kurds are very respectful towards women. Whenever I was asked how it felt to be a woman there, first of all, no, I did not have to be veiled. I did not have to wear a hijab or anything on my head. It's totally fine, even as a redhead woman, I'm fine there. And the other thing was that I also always felt very respected and really well treated. I was taken for full as an interview partner, even if I interviewed generals or high politicians. They really took me for granted. They took me as a serious person, and there was no sort of being a woman there. It was just talking from person to person, nothing like that. And even like talking of how it feels like to walk down the street. I always like to compare it to Italy. It's definitely not any different than going down a street in Italy. Yes, people turn, yes, people take a look, but that's that. And it happens everywhere else as well. So I never had any problem with that. The thing that stuck with me the most from going to Kurdistan is that I'm still overwhelmed by everybody's way of treating a foreigner. They're so open-minded, they're so open-hearted, and so hospitable. I was taken in by families, one after the other, and they took me in as almost as if I was a part of the family. And I had this so many times, and they never hesitated to help me out with either with contacts, with cars, with even money if I would have needed it. It's not a problem at all. They're just there, and there is nothing that you cannot ask for, and they're there to give it. And you always feel like you can never give enough back simply because, but this is just the way how they do it. And to me, this is stunning. And even today, not having been there for over half a year now, I miss it. I miss it so much just because of the wholeheartedness of people. Yes, there is two or three things like the canal system is not as good as in Europe, and there's there's tiny issues, and yes, there is a war, but it still feels so natural and so great to be